If you clicked on this video, you're probably all too familiar with the muddiness that bronzers and contours can create on your skin. Today, I'm giving you my ultimate tips on fair skin contouring and highlighting. Even if you don't have fair skin, there's lots of tips throughout this video that are helpful, but I will be sharing specifics on how to get these techniques to look natural on your skin. Fair skin, the thing is that things can just show up too harshly. Makeup can overtake us very quickly. So throughout the years, I've learned a lot of different tips and tricks, and I'll also be sharing my favorite products that just give the most seamless effects on fair skin. If you aren't already subscribed and you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, make sure you're subscribed and turn on your post notifications. That is that little bell next to the subscribe button. It'll notify you whenever I post a new video. If you do find this helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I would love to know in the comments below what fair skin struggle or technique you would like me to address in my next video. I really like doing this series. It's kind of the videos I wish that I had. Kind of had to learn all of this for myself, but let's go ahead and get started. Today we will be focusing on the underpainting technique. Now this went viral a couple months back because I forget, some celebrity's makeup artist made it viral, I don't know, but I originally heard about this from Scott Barnes like years ago. I remember learning about underpainting. It went viral for that other makeup artist. I don't know, it wasn't news to me, but I have sort of practiced it throughout the years and adapted the best techniques. I don't do it exactly how Scott Barnes does it or the other makeup artist does it. I forget who it was. If you know, let me know in the comments below. I'm just blanking on it, but these will be my tried and true updated techniques. I do have a word from our sponsor of today's video before we get into the makeup. Ana Luisa is a brand that I've been partnering for years now. I love their jewelry. I have such a collection of it now. So I wanted to mention that they have a spring sale going on currently that is buy one, get one 40% off. If you've never heard of them before, maybe you're new to my channel, they are a sustainable jewelry company that makes such high quality pieces. I've never found another jewelry company that offers the same quality and sustainability as them at their prices. Their pieces are truly timeless and I get so many compliments on them. They also make great gifts, especially for the buy one get one 40% off sale. You could get something for yourself and something for someone else, or maybe just two goodies for yourself. To start, I am wearing a piece from them. These earrings I believe I've had for over a year. They wear so well. There's absolutely no tarnish on these. They have a little bit of like a pave look to them. They're the perfect size. But the new pieces that I have to share with you, I was really excited to pick out. First, let's start with this dainty little necklace. I've been really into more dainty jewelry. They have a lot of beautiful dainty pieces on their site. I've just realized that I wear them a lot more than sort of like more bold pieces, just my personal preference. This piece is so pretty. I saw it and I knew I had to have it. So it's this really cute little flower with like a just shiny stone in the center. I really like this because it like ties into the stones on my earrings and also the other jewelry pieces that I have. It's the perfect length. I really love the tone of gold that Ana Luisa does as well. It's not too yellow, so it's really flattering even if you have cool undertones. But if you are more into silver, they do offer silver pieces as well. So each of their pieces come in these little protective cases, which are so great for travel. I've traveled with these a bunch of times. Just helps to protect everything, but they're still nice and lightweight. So the other new pieces I have are some rings. I am a collector of rings. I love just stacking them on themselves. So the first one I picked out is this stack that has gold and silver because I'm really into combining metals at the moment, and I thought these were just so simple and elegant and literally go with anything. And then the next one I picked out is sort of like an upgraded version of a ring I already have. Their rope ring. I have two other ones from them that have worn so well. I have the regular rope and then I have the thick one, and they came out with this one that has stones on it. Again, it ties into my necklace and my earrings, so I just knew I had to have it because it's one of my favorite styles from them. And then the last one I picked out is this ring that has this really cool like quilted texture to it. I really love just like textural interest on rings. It makes them super cool. I love how stackable and versatile they are. Super gorgeous. They have so many beautiful styles to choose from. I really recommend checking out their site. Again, you can get buy one get one 40% off during their spring sale, but even if you missed that, I have a 20% off code for you to use. I will pop that on the screen here, and it will always be in the description below. First things first, you're gonna wanna make sure that your skin is nice and prepped with your skincare routine and a moisturizer that's suited for your skin type. For me, my skin's sort of on the drier side right now, so I did use a pretty thick moisturizer, and I'm also going to go in with a hydrating primer. But if you have more oily skin, this is the step where I would substitute a more oil controlling primer, or if you have a lot of texture, you might want to opt for a smoothing one. Kind of all depends on what your #1 skin concern is at the moment. A skin prep is going to be really important, especially for the products that come after. The primer I'll be using is the RMS Beauty Re-Evolve Radiance Locking Primer. This is a really nice, juicy, hydrating primer. And this just is going to add another layer of hydration, and it's going to help our cream products apply smoother and blend out smoother as well. I would also recommend making sure you've exfoliated your skin. Cream products can sort of stick to dry skin if there's a lot of dry skin present. This primer also has a nice tackiness to it, which will help grip our other products. Really love this primer. I'm not a huge primer person, but this is one that I really notice a difference in my makeup. Our next step is going to be contour, and I have 3 different products I want to recommend for fair skin. First is one that I would not recommend for underpainting unless you want a very, very natural look, because this is on the more sheer side. This is beautiful over foundation for a more natural everyday look. If you want something more low effort, this is the KVD Modcon Contour Gel in the shade Fair Cool. So this has a doe foot applicator, and you can tell it is a very sheer formula. The undertone of this is really great for fair skin. As you can tell, it's not super cool toned, but it's also like not warm as a contour shouldn't be. And the fact that it's sheer, I think, mimics a shadow extremely well, which is sort of the point of contouring. So if you're looking for a lightweight gel option and you don't really like heavy creams, maybe you have more oily skin, this is one of my favorites. Then I have 2 creams here that I really recommend. First is if you have fair olive skin. I have fair cool olive skin. Maybe if you have a fair warmer olive complexion, this would be a really great undertone for contour. So this is from Danessa Myricks. It's the lightest Vision Cream Contour. As you can tell, this has a very nice, more olivey undertone to it. As you can tell, compared to the KVD one, which is pretty cool toned, it does lean on the warmer side, but because it has such a nice yellowy green base, this is going to work really well and actually look a lot more natural than maybe a super cool tone. This is one of my favorites. It looks so natural on my skin. I probably will be layering this with our other product today, but yeah, this is a really great one, and the formula is very long lasting. They have different shades of this, but this one specifically for fair skin with olive undertones is amazing. So my favorite true cool contour cream is this one from Fenty Beauty. This is the Amber shade. They make such great contouring shades in the cream line. They also have like a stick version of this. I haven't tried the stick one, but this one is the shade Amber, as I mentioned. And you'll be able to tell out of these 3, it is the most true cool toned. It's almost like this stone color, which is going to be perfect for fair skin because you want it to mimic a shadow as best as possible. This also is an extremely pigmented cream formula. I also like the Anastasia contour stick in Fawn, but that one is quite thick and pigmented, and it's just not my favorite to use anymore. But if you're looking for something more full coverage, then that is a good option. The brush I'll be using is this Trixie P10 brush. I really like the small shape of this because we're going to want to be pretty precise at first. I'm just working the brush into the product. And what I like to do is start stamping it. I'm going to do it a little bit higher than where I want it to be because when it blends out, it's going to sort of migrate a little bit down, but you don't want it too far up because it's going to look quite muddy. And because this is going under foundation, I am going a little bit more heavy-handed than I would if I was doing this over foundation. And then for my forehead, since I have more of an oval face shape, my forehead is actually quite like narrow at the top, but it is long. So I don't like to really contour the sides of my forehead. I like to just do the top. I feel like it balances my face the best. Where you place it is going to sort of depend on your face shape. There's lots of great videos about placement for your face shape, but if you have an oval face like mine, this is how I do it. And then for the jawline, I actually like to start right under my chin, and then I draw a line upwards, basically like a contour beard. And then for the more precise contour, I'm going to take the Trixie P03 brush, which is just a smaller, more precise flat shader. And then for the nose, I'm starting right at the brow. You want to make sure you're looking straight forward for this, and then dragging it straight down. And then doing the same on the other side. It doesn't have to be exactly even because we're going to blend it out. And I don't usually do any on the bottom of my nose because my nose is already pretty upturned, so I don't really need to do that. Just like I don't do the sides of my forehead, I just kind of take what I have and like, okay, I want my nose to be a little bit slimmer, but I don't necessarily want to change the upward shape of it. So I skip that. This cream does not dry down very quickly, by the way, so that's why it's a really great product for underpainting, because you have time to work with it. Picking up a little bit more product. I'm not going to be able to talk when I'm doing this, but I'm going to lightly line the outsides of my lips. Now that the placement is done, I like to go in with this Heritage Store Rosewater and Glycerin Hydrating Facial Mist. The glycerin in this is going to sort of stick to the cream and the rest of our face, and it's going the rest of my face, and it's going to make the creams blend out even easier. This is a really good trick if you feel like your cream has dried down as well and you need to refresh it. To blend everything out, I like the Luxie 512 Small Contouring. This is one of my favorite brushes. Just the perfect shape to blend out contour. You can also use a sponge at this point. What I'm doing is I'm going to start stippling this on and blend it in. For the cheek contour, I'm going to make sure not to blend it down. You want to blend it out and in a more upwards motion, or else that's going to actually drag your face down. For the jawline, this is the one place where I do blend downwards because we placed it at the highest point that I want it to be, and then the shadow is going to be below. In this, I do more circular motions. So at this point, you don't need to be so blended that the contour disappears into the skin. You can still sort of see it. It can be a little bit hard if you have redness like me, because you can sort of, it gets harder to tell, like the contour and the redness starts to blend together. But you kind of just have to trust the process here. So this is sort of the base of our underpainting. I will be reinforcing this basically after we do foundation, but this will be the base that is under our foundation. It is quite subtle. You can, depending on your skin tone, make it more pigmented, but because this is my experience with fair skin, I do like to keep it pretty light, because if you have fair skin, you know that contour bronzers, they can look muddy and pigmented very easily. So doing a lighter take on it is usually more successful. So for some underpainting tutorials, they do include concealer. I personally don't like doing concealer before foundation, but I do like doing my highlight before foundation. So I have two options here. This is going to be if you have fair skin. I would recommend these white ones. These work especially well under foundation. I can wear these on top of foundation because I am so fair, but if you're a little bit darker than me, you would probably, I would say, stick with these under foundation. So these are white concealers. I have two different formulas here. This is the e.l.f. Camo Concealer. This is more of a matte, long wear one, which would be good for more oily skin. And then I have the Cover FX White Concealer. This one is my favorite. It's a bit thinner, a little bit more hydrating, but it still has good wear. This one is a little bit more pigmented, and it sort of sticks more where you place it, whereas this one blends out a little bit better. So we'll be using the Cover FX one today. If you wanted something even more pigmented, Danessa Myricks also makes a Vision Cream Cover in white, which is very, very pigmented if you're doing something super glam for like a photo shoot and you just really need pigment. This is the point where you could also add a glowy product on the top of your cheekbones. I'm not going to be doing that today. So I'm taking this white concealer and I'm just going to be dotting this on. This is quite pigmented, so I don't want to do too much. So the tops of my cheekbones, this is going to be the areas that you want to pull forward. Right here on my chin, I make sure to keep it quite upwards because I do have a longer chin. I don't want to highlight down here to make my face longer. I want to keep it, you want attention towards the middle of your face. I also like to highlight this area of my face and we will be highlighting down the nose, but I'm going to be using a more precise tool. I'm also not highlighting above my lip because I don't want to expand that area either, but if you have maybe like a shorter distance between your lip and your nose, you might want to do that area. Now for this, I do like to use a sponge. This is just a Shop Missy sponge, and I'm just going to be blending this out in a circular motion. And when I'm blending this highlight, I'm going to be blending it upwards towards my eye. I don't want to bring it down too much into the contour because that's when things start to get a little muddled. I'm also bringing this sort of under my eye to brighten that area as well. So I really love white concealers because if you have fair skin and you feel like nothing brightens your face, even the lightest concealers, white is just really going to be your friend. They also sell white powders. Like I know that MAC has one I've been wanting to try if you want to do like a powder routine. So as you can tell, the dimension is sort of taking place. Whatever is left on my sponge, I like to start to cut out the contour. As you can tell, there was quite a lot of product left. So that's going to help the contour stand out more, and it's going to just sharpen everything up. So for my nose, I'm taking the same brush we used to contour, and I'm going to use whatever's left over to go back in to reinforce the nose. I feel like the nose contour always sort of blends out the easiest, so I like to just reinforce that before we do the highlight. And then I'm going to clean it off. And I'm just taking the tiniest bit of the white concealer and really working it into the brush. I'm just going to draw straight of a line as possible down my nose. If you did want to lift the nose, when you get to the end, I would do more of a dot shape or like an oval shape. And then just to blend out the sides, I'm going back in with this smaller brush we used to apply the contour originally. And this time I'm going to leave it a little bit more unblended so that it doesn't totally disappear. Now you can sort of tell the lightness and the darkness. This on its own would look pretty weird, but since we're doing foundation, that's going to help everything meld together. Now I'm going in with the Pixie. This is an under eye corrector. This is just to help my dark circles. If you have fair skin, you might know this problem all too well. Just any sort of discoloration really shows through on our skin. You can also use color correctors like green or yellow. I do have a lot of redness, but I just didn't really feel like doing color correcting today. I wanted to keep it focused on the highlight and contour, but I am doing the peach under eye corrector. I just always do this. Next, I'm going to take the Danessa Myricks contour that I mentioned. This is sort of going to be like a underpainted bronzer type of situation. I'm going to go very light-handed in this. I don't want to muddle the contour too much, so I'm just dabbing in with the blending brush, working it on my hand so we have a minimal amount of product. And then I'm just going to go around basically the edges of the contour as our warmth. I also like to do the bottom of my chin here and also on the forehead to sort of meld the white and the contour. Now I'm going to be taking a blush. I would suggest something a little bit brighter, more pigmented than what you usually go for because you're going to want this to show through your foundation. I'm using the Persona Bubble Blush, which is one of my favorites. And I like this on the very back high point of my cheekbones. And then taking a clean side of my sponge, I will be working this in. This is also going to blend into the white that we put there, so it's going to create a nice gradient. Again, this doesn't have to be super duper blended out. You just want it to be mostly blended. So here is our underpainted base. You can do concealer before foundation, which is a little bit more of a traditional approach to it. I just personally like doing that after because after I see the foundation on, I can know how much concealer to put on because otherwise I feel like I usually end up using a little bit too much concealer than I actually need. Foundation I'll be using today is a more medium coverage, which is what I would suggest. Medium to light coverage is going to be good. So this is the Revlon Skin Caring Foundation. You don't want something too full coverage because it's really going to cover up all the work that we did. And this is the shade 105, which is Creamy Ivory, I believe. It is their lightest shade with warm undertones. So I'm going to be using a loose stipple brush. This is the Trixie P13. And I'm going to be getting the foundation onto this. And then I'm going to start blending this in circular motions. Not putting too much pressure because I don't want to move are underpainting too much. It's just to start to apply the foundation in light layers. This does not apply foundation smoothly, by the way. This is just to get it on in a nice light layer, and then we'll be blending it in with a sponge. Not a totally necessary step, but if you have a stipple brush, you can do it. So now I'm going in with my sponge, and I'm going to start pressing the foundation in. Again, I'm not like doing anything circular because we don't want to move the underpainting. So now at this point you can start to gauge if you need more foundation, which I do feel like I need a little bit more coverage. Do about half more of a pump. This layer I'm just going to be applying with my sponge. I'm going to work it into the sponge first and then press it onto the skin. Now with the foundation on, it's a lot easier to gauge where I do need concealer and don't need it. I really recommend doing it after foundation, but you know, if you like doing it before, that also works. So for my concealers, I wanted to recommend 3. First is the Rose Ink Concealer in the lightest shade 010. This is a beautiful, very fair shade of concealer. It has like nice, fair, neutral undertones. If you feel like it's hard to find a concealer that is light enough, definitely check this one out. This is very full coverage. It's more on the moisturizing side, so if you have normal to dry skin. And then I also really like the Derma Blend Cover Care. This is the shade Ivory, which I believe is also the lightest shade. This one's not quite as light as the Rose Ink one. Has a little bit more of like a yellow undertone to it, but it is very full coverage. I really like this one for blemishes. And then I would say my all-time favorite is the Jouer Concealer. This is the shade Lace. This one is nice and light, both in shade. Not quite as light as the Rose Ink one. Nice and light, a little bit more peachy. Both the shade and the formulation are thin, and this is the most creaseless on me. So I'm going to be taking the Jouer Concealer first. This will be for under my eyes. I like to keep it just where the darkness is, so right on those inner corners, because we did already add that white on the outer corner, and I don't have a ton of discoloration there, so it's not necessary. And then I'm going to take the Derma Blend Concealer. In this one, I will just be dotting on blemishes. I like this one for blemishes because it doesn't like quite highlight them because it's not super light on me like the Rose Ink one is, so it helps to hide them a little bit better. Going with my sponge, I'll be blending in the Jouer Concealer at first. You want to make sure not to go over the nose contour, just go right up to it. And then I use the excess and blend it out to the outer corner of the eye. And then doing the same on this side. I do also go over my eyelids. Just a personal thing. I like it as a base. And then blending out the Derma Blend Concealer. I really like to push this one in because it just concentrates the coverage on the blemishes. And it really sticks where you put it, which is one of my favorite things about it. Taking the extra just around my mouth because I do have some discoloration there. So at this point, I like to take a survey of everything and see if I need more blush, more contour, if I want to highlight more, and then just add, because you can also add on top of foundation. But I feel like everything is looking pretty good. It blended out very well. We're going to be going in with powders, but before we set, I'm actually going back in with this Rosewater and glycerin spray. You could also use this with a long wear setting spray if you want your makeup to last a super long time. Sorry, I had to take my headband out. It was giving me a headache. But as I was saying, you could also use a long wear setting spray if you want this to be super long lasting, or if you have more oily skin. I just like using that one. And then when that's still on my face, I go in with my sponge to just do a final blend to make sure that everything is melted into the skin and there's no like lines or anything. Moving on to setting, I'm going to start with a translucent shade. One of my favorites is the Haley's Retouch Soft Focus Setting Powder. This is amazing. It's so smooth. It makes you look filtered. My other favorite is the e.l.f. Soft Focus Setting Powder. Very similar effect to this. They're both very translucent, especially on fair skin. As you may know, like the Laura Mercier one and a lot of different powders tend to actually like darken the under eye or your skin with like a slight yellow tint. But this one I find pretty dang translucent. So I always start with the under eye, but before I do that, this is just my preference because I have very like creasy under eyes, just the way my eyes are shaped. I like to go in with my finger just to pick up any like extra product that sort of settled into lines. And then I'll also go back in with my sponge right before I set. And taking a Real Techniques setting brush, I make sure to really coat all sides of the brush because you don't want the brush touching your skin without powder on it because that could pick up the product and make it cakey looking. And then I just usually look up and I start in the inner corner and I just press this in. I always like to have an excess of product on the brush. I just find it actually looks less cakey that way. So I start under the eye, I drag it to the side of the nose, and then also into the smile line. All the places that sort of just get the most creased, I like to start there. So as you can tell, it did not really change the color too much. It just set everything down and made it look very smooth. I'm just repeating the same over here. This eye crease is more on me. I think it's because I usually sleep on this side, so I probably just have more lines there. If you have a side of your face that you crease like under your eye more, let me know, or is it just me? That's my theory, is that because I sleep on that side, it's just a little bit more fine liney. It's not really a word. So I'm also taking whatever's left right in between my eyebrows and then right on my chin as well. Just the most oily areas. Now to set the rest of your face, you can use a bit more of a shimmery or glowy powder if you want more of a luminescent look. I'm going to go in with the same Hailey's Beauty one on a bigger fluffy brush, and I'm going to use this to lightly set the rest of my face, always tapping, never rubbing. So as you can tell, like my just redness in my cheeks is showing through, and I do have a blemish showing through here, but I'll be showing my little trick, showing you my trick to fix that blemish. But I like sort of just leaving my cheek redness there. It's just like natural blush basically. So if you like to bake, I really love this powder for fair skin. The Fit Me powder in 05 is a super fair under eye powder. One of the only ones I found that's a colored powder that actually wears well and doesn't make my under eye look cakey, and is also light enough. So my trick, if you have deep set eyes like I do, like you can tell, even with concealer, this part of my eye, it just has shadow in it because my eyes are a bit more deep set. Instead of baking my whole under eye, I take a more precise brush like this Hailey's Beauty brush. I get the powder on there, and then what I do is I basically do like a mini bake, but only in the hollows of my eyes. If you do the whole area, it's going to bring everything forward, but if you just do the hollow of your eye, it's going to bring that forward and make it look less hollow, if you know what I'm saying, because it'll only bring forward the hollow part, not everything. I do also like to take a little bit of that right on the outer corner. I'm not a huge fan of like baking this area. It just always ends up looking pretty cakey on me. And I also take a little bit between the brows, a little bit on my chin. So while that's baking, I will be going into bronzers and additional powder products. So I actually have 3 powder contours I want to mention in case you wanted powder options. First is the Charlotte Tilbury Duo. This is still pretty warm. I like to use this as like a bronzer. It's like bronzer and contour. What I like is it's quite sheer and it has a little bit of shimmer in it. It just doesn't pull too warm or too cool. I also really like the Hailey's Beauty powder contour. Another one that is more on the neutral cool side. As you can tell, this one's a really great shade if you want just like that perfect contour. And then if you need something super duper cool toned, the NYX Blush in So Taupe. This is like an old school fair skin contour classic. This is a nice silky formula. It is very gray, quite pigmented. This you have to be very careful with. It can look muddy quite quickly. So since I'm looking to add like a little bit more warmth, I'm going in with the Charlotte Tilbury one on a fluffy bronzer brush, and I'm just going to be tapping this in the bronzer area. We did do a little bit of that Danessa Myricks olive contour for a little bit of warmth, but this is just going to help bring everything together. I do like to put bronzer on the sides of my forehead, even though I don't contour there. I do like to have a little bit of warmth. Also on the bottom of my chin, a little bit on the jawline. Just meld the contour in. I'm also going back in with that little brush and whatever powder is left just to clean up the contour even more. not totally necessary. Now for blush, if you have a very soft pastel pink blush, this is a really nice color to put here to blend like everything together. I just used up my Han baby pink blush though, so I'm gonna use something shimmery. This is the RMS blush. I love this. This is gonna start to add the dimension back to the skin. So I'm just taking a Trixie P11. I like to work it into the brush and then get off the excess because this can go quite heavy quite quickly. I just love the glow that this adds. When I'm applying this, I actually like go right into my eye socket. This is gonna give you like that seamless look, so there's no lines. A lot of like celebrities you will see in their makeup, like they wear their blush like this. That's why I said if you have a very light pink one, you can even do like a transition within that. I just think it looks like really natural. Now I'm taking my under eye brush and I'm just going to brush off the excess under eye bake that we had. And I will use that excess to just blend into the brush and downwards onto my cheek. Now I will be doing highlight. I wanted to mention 3. I like giving you guys options. You can do a cream highlight under foundation. I just don't personally love cream highlights. They're not my absolute favorite. But I have 3 here, depending on the intensity you want. If you want a really soft glow, the Laura Mercier Baked Radiance Highlight in 01. This is gorgeous. It's very, very finely milled, so it's not going to look really like anything on your skin. You could also use an Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder as a highlight. Want something more dramatic? This Jouer palette, I usually mix the white and the pink one. And then this also falls in between. I would say this is like the most dramatic. This can be built up, but it is quite pretty neutral, natural on its own. The Bare Minerals blush in Whimsy. This has a purple undertone to it. I'm actually going to start with the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder. This is Ethereal Light, which is basically the white shade and a fan brush. So this is essentially a very finely milled, like, shimmer powder. They advertise this for all over the face, but what I love is you can just like really layer this on and start to add dimension back into the areas of the face that were like powdered down. Or you could just use that as like a very natural highlight. I like to do is like really build it up, because if you do build it up enough, it basically will turn into a highlight. But if you want to boost the glow, you can go in with another one. I'm going to take the Dior highlight. I'm just going to do the white shade. I do have the shimmery blush on already, so you don't need too much. I'm just hitting this right on the tops of my cheekbones. Really love a fan brush for highlight. It just never applies it like in a line. It just basically blends itself out. And then I'm taking a little small pencil brush in that same highlight. And this is how I like to highlight my nose. I'm using an even smaller brush than this. I feel like this works pretty well. And then I like to go in with the fan brush just to blend it in. And then to reinforce the contour that we have on the nose, I'm going in with the Hailey's Beauty contour powder that I showed earlier. And then I like to take a fluffier brush, get a little bit of this, and then just very lightly go over that, just to blend in the highlight again. I also take a little bit into the crease. And then going in with my under eye brush just to go over everything. That just light layer of powder that's on there is gonna help everything blend together. All right, we are almost there. For any blemishes that are left over, even with everything we have on, I always like to go in with a powder foundation. This ends up looking a lot less cakey than layering a lot of liquid or cream products, especially for blemishes that maybe things just aren't sticking to it very well. Try a powder foundation. This is the Pure 4-in-1. This is LG6. Slightly darker than my skin, but not totally obvious, again, just so it's not highlighting the blemish. Taking this pencil brush again, making sure the highlight is off of it. Taking a little bit of the powder. You can tell it's just right here under my lip. And just pressing that on. So we are basically done with this whole highlight, contour, and underpainting. Final step would be setting spray. I'm going to be using more of a mattifying, long-lasting setting spray because I did use the hydrating one to help blend everything in. I like to finish with something that's a little bit more long-lasting. This is the Thrive Instant Makeup Fix. I really like this one in the Danessa Myricks matte setting spray, super long wearing. This is also going to help melt all the powders in because I did use, you know, more powder than I typically use, and you don't want to have a powdery finish. I actually go quite heavy with it. I basically like to coat my face and then just fan it down. So that is the complete base. I will be going ahead and finishing up the rest of my makeup, and I'll be back to show you the finished look. The rest of my makeup is done. If you want to know how I do more of my eyes and lip recommendations, I do have a couple more fair skin videos. I have a drugstore version along with a normal version of just like my ultimate tips for fair skin makeup. I will link them in the info card. But I love the finished look. The thing about this technique is it feels so incredibly thin. It gives a super glam sculpted effect but still maintains that lightweight feel, and it does not look cakey at all, versus when you're layering a lot of creams and liquids on top of each other without sort of like using something to blend it in. It can look just a little bit more obvious, especially if you have fair skin. Things can just get muddy looking so quickly. So this is one of my favorite techniques. Obviously a lot longer to do. It's not gonna be something that's like achievable on an everyday basis. You can do like definitely a quicker version of it, but I really hope that you found this helpful if you ever wanted to do this for like a more glam occasion. I will go ahead and link the rest of the makeup that I have on my face as well, and don't underestimate a nice blue toned gloss to cool down any lip. Love this, especially if you have fair skin. Yes, that was the finished look. I would love to know your fair skin and makeup struggles in the comments below so I can make a future video to help you out. Feel free to leave questions or comments even if you don't have fair skin. Just makeup struggles in general. I will be sure to include some helpful tips in upcoming videos. So I'll be chatting with you down there in the comments below. And don't forget to shop the Ana Luisa buy one get one 40% off spring sale. And don't forget that even if you missed the sale's over, you can still use my code for 20% off. I will put it on the bottom of the screen here. You know, will always be in the links below. Thank you to Ana Luisa for partnering with me again for this video. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, if you haven't already, if you enjoy my content. It really helps me out and helps my channel get shared to other people who may need it. But thank y'all for tuning in, and of course give this video a like if you liked it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.